I like to coach people. I don't think it's good to try to coach people on things that you haven't done yourself. I think you have to really coach yourself first. So, with diet and exercise and, relationships and things like that, I really stuck to my own experience.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Pedro, and today's guest is Karl Klausewitz, CEO of Success Marketing, a strategist who works with founders who have hit the external milestones yet feel misaligned inside. With a decade of creative strategy and over 100 entrepreneurs served, he helps leaders cut through burnout and noise so they can clarify their message, refine their model, and build a business that feels true to who they are. His work blends sharp strategy with creative depth, installing systems that protect energy, strengthen storytelling, and realign the brand with founders' mission. The result is grounded, purposeful growth guided by simple frameworks founders can actually use. So welcome to the show, Karl.
Thanks a lot. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, great to have you too. All right, so let's rewind a bit. I like to backtrack a little bit, go back to the origin story. Every coach has that moment where they look at their life and say, you know what, I guess this is what I'm doing now. When was that for you?
I worked in the corporate world for about 20 years, and I got to a point where it started feeling kind of stale, and I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get to do the things in life that I wanted to if I continued to work for someone else. So it just made a lot of sense to me to start my own company, and I had prior experience coaching in sports and, kind of some jobs I had had in the past. So when I started looking around at internet marketing at first, when that was becoming popular in the early 2000s, I was noticing that all the marketers were coaches. And so it just made a lot of sense to me to give that a try. And the more I got into self-help and personal development, coaching training specifically, it just all clicked for me. And I started working with family and friends and just kind of branched out from there.
Okay, so you left corporate America and started your own business. And it all started with working with family and friends, the closest ones, right? And usually that's actually what happens. And when did it shift from I'm helping, family, friends to I'm building a real business around this? When was that shift for you?
I think it was really when I decided to start running ads. I got started on LinkedIn, and I was just started out charging, very low rates and doing a lot of free sessions, and I kind of grew from there. I think it's important to provide as much value as you can to people. So once I started to develop my coaching practice and came up with plans and exercises and more things for people to work on, then it grew a lot faster for me.
Okay, so some pro bono work, some free coaching, also start testing with ads, right? So after you got rolling, who are the people that kept showing up? The ones you realized, okay, these are my people.
Right, yeah. I really focused a lot on people who were trying to transition from the corporate world because it just made sense to me to stick to my own experience. And so I looked to founders and entrepreneurs who wanted to improve their own life, their own business. And I really focused on helping those people as much as I could. You want to help people who have enough money to pay you. So ideally, you want to help people who are more successful than you become even more successful.
I mean, the been there, done that makes sense, right? You left from the corporate America and then hey, I've been there, done that. Why not help people do the same, right? So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and in my personal life too, I like to coach people. I don't think it's good to try to coach people on things that you haven't done yourself. I think you have to really coach yourself first. So, with diet and exercise and, relationships and things like that, I really stuck to my own experience.
Okay. I mean, that resonates a lot with our audience. That makes sense. And I mean, that's the coaching side, right? And I know we talked a little bit about where I'm trying to introduce here. Now let's talk about the part nobody escapes, right? You mentioned the ads, and the part nobody escapes, it's marketing, right? So
Yeah.
How do people usually find you?
Well, like I mentioned, I started out just on LinkedIn and I branched out to Instagram. And with all the marketers who were coming to me on LinkedIn, I started asking them more questions about how they got started and why they do what they do. And that led me to starting my own podcast that I was then publishing on YouTube. So that helped a lot of people to find me, just spreading out on the different platforms with short form video mostly is really popular now.
Okay, so you ended up trying some LinkedIn, some Instagram. Now you have a podcast. That's how you figured out how to reach people.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, so let's talk business for a second. People find you, they resonate with your work, and eventually they want to know what working with you actually looks like, right? So everyone builds their coaching business a bit differently. So when someone actually becomes a client, what does that experience look like right now?
Well, I have a coaching plan that I've come up with. I call myself a purpose coach because I help people to find and embrace their life purpose and build off that, build more meaning in life. And that alone is good, but it wasn't really quite the focus that I needed just yet, and went more towards monetization because everybody was coming to me with business problems. Some people are more comfortable talking about business problems than they are personal problems. So it's more of an in. And I started focusing more on growing and building a business as I had more experience with that after a while. So helping people to monetize their purpose became more my focus later.
And just out of curiosity, because we see our audience and they have these questions, because we see coaches do one-on-one work, group coaching, program-based, let's say an online course, right? So that structure, how that looks like for your business right now.
Yeah, I started out with lightning coaching, I called it. So it was really abbreviated, shorter time for less money, which kind of opened up more audience to me, but also more problems. I think people who aren't willing to pay a premium cost have a lot more problems. You end up dealing with a lot more people that way. So, later I kind of toned that down a little bit and started leaning more into group coaching and premium rates and charging more. So I focus a lot on helping people with integrating AI into their business now. That's kind of the elephant in the room of the business world. Everybody who doesn't have it knows that they probably should. So, once you get your own stuff fixed and integrated, then it's kind of, you're drinking your own champagne and you have something to show other people, look, here's how I set my appointments and use automation, and I can help you do the same thing. So when you get the details ironed out in your own business, that's really, I think you always fall to the level of your weakest system. So it's really important to be organized and detail oriented.
I mean, that's very interesting that you mentioned, and the fact that you implement AI in your clients' businesses, and also that you do group coaching. So your work seems pretty hands-on, like despite the fact you're implementing AI, you have to teach them, right?
Right.
So how do you think about capacity so you don't stretch yourself too thin?
I try to do a lot with as much as I can with scheduling, and it's important to outsource, I think, and ask for help. There's kind of this myth in business about the one-man show. I can do it all myself and I'm self-made. And I think turns out nobody really does it by themselves. And if you're not willing to ask for help, then you're never going to get to the next level. So I think it's really important to ask for help on things that, maybe you're not as good at, and admit your weaknesses and realize that the things in your business have to get done no matter what. So I think that's an important part of growth.
And one thing every coach wrestles with at some point is pricing. And I know we touched this a little bit, the fact that you did free coaching, that you had that lightning coach that you had, it gave you more headaches than actual revenue, right? But you've been through a lot. So what I mean is, how do you package your work now? How do you think about it today? And were there any lessons along the way that shaped how you landed there?
Yeah, I think it ends up being about your self-worth, how much you charge, and it's also how you're perceived in the marketplace. So that's why I think it's important to have a premium price structure. And I think the more that you offer people, then the more you would want to be charging. So I like to have a tiered stair-step approach. So I might help people with just the basic platforms at first and their web presence. And then as I might add on more automations or website or something like that, then I would add on more layers to the basic package. So, maybe start at $2,000. People were very comfortable getting their feet wet at that rate just to see how things go for a month. And then, maybe add on like another 3 and then add on another 7, to see how things go as you provide more value over time. Clients are more comfortable with you to add more payment to the structure.
I mean, that's a solid look into how you approach pricing structure, especially the self-worth, pricing, I would say, angle, because that really resonates with coaches, because at the end of the day, we're talking about your time, right?
Yeah.
It's about how much you invested in yourself that prepared you to actually do the coaching now,
right? Really think it's bad to relate it to dollars per hour. That's kind of the employee mindset. And it's not just the time that you're putting in right then. It's all the preparation leading up to it that a lot of the value is. So, all the training and resources and books you had to read and conferences you had to go to and people you had to talk to know enough and internalize all that to be able to pass it on to someone else is really where a lot of the value is, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. And sometimes when you're charging by the hour, you're considering yourself to the market as a commodity, right? So they can compare yourself easily to other coaches, and that's not always good, right?
Yeah, it's very nickel dime,
Right.
Did I get the full hour or, was it the full rate for the full hour? And I think it's good to get away from all that and just use round numbers and say, this is what it is for the month. And we're going to work together as long as it takes and do whatever it takes to get you what you want and get you where you want to be.
Yeah, that's so true. And if you're being measured by the hour, we're not measuring the results, right? You're just measuring by the clock. So,
exactly.
And I'm curious about, discussing pricing structure, what you just said. I'm curious about where you're taking all this, looking ahead. Where do you see the business going? Are you thinking about scaling, hiring, or is there a next step you're excited about?
Yeah, I'm partnering up right now with another coach and we're building out a new company. So we're hiring more people to help with, things like video editing and design work, stuff that we are not as specialized in. And there's really so much more you can do when you have more people, the personal private entrepreneur by themselves. It's great to be, your own entrepreneur and stuff, but it's kind of like you can be on 2 different ships. You can be on the ship with everybody, a great big, huge entrepreneurship and get everything done, or you can be by yourself in a little canoe. And so you can just really leverage your time and earn a lot more and help a lot more people actually if you partner up. So that's kind of the direction I'm going now.
Right. That's interesting. And, of course, whenever we're aiming toward the next chapter, there's always something we're refining in the present. I know you mentioned hiring. I know you mentioned you're partnering up, right? So what are you currently trying to improve or tighten up in your business? Would it be the hiring process? Would it be how is this going to work with a partner? Whether that looks like for you?
I think finding really reliable help is important because everybody who works with you ends up improving their skills anyway. So I think the skills are maybe not quite as important as finding someone who always shows up on time and is always there when you need them. So that's really what we're looking for now is people that we can rely on 100%.
Okay. Changing topics. I want to switch gears for a second and do something a bit more fun. I know hiring is fun, but I want to try a game here if you're down for it.
Okay.
Got a quick game for you. So we'll look at this through the lens of business investments. Okay. Things like coaching, training, marketing, team, masterminds, you name it. So it's simple. I'll give you 4 prompts and you tell me the first thing that comes to mind. If there's a story behind it, even better. Okay. So what's the first business investment you remember making?
Probably paid ads. I think paid ads are important because people think that you can get free marketing from social media, but it turns out it's not really free in the end, and you probably won't end up with the results right away that you're looking for because it's kind of a big runaround. You get the likes and you get the shares, and then you start focusing on metrics that don't really move the needle in your business. And the only thing that does does is results. And so when you move to paid ads, then it's kind of direct results. Like you are just focused on getting the clients in the door, and that frees up more of your time than to focus on what you need to say to those people to retain them, which is really kind of where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah, that's so true because, well, if you're not investing money or investing time, right? If you're trying to build the audience by yourself, it's not free because you need to post, you need to do all the things, you have to do all the hard work. So yeah, that makes a lot of
And
sense.
it devalues your time too. You have to pay yourself for your time. So
Right.
if you're not doing that, then you're devaluing yourself. So it's kind of a trick.
Yeah, I get it. Okay, moving forward, what's the most recent one you made?
The most recent
Investment you made?
I would have to say in automation and getting my scheduling and my messaging all set up with ChatGPT so that I can lean on that for more of the redundant work. That's where I think a lot of the power of AI is. People want to go with the generative AI and have it write posts for them. And I think that is not a good idea. I think it's good to use for brainstorming and to give you ideas to write about. But I think a lot of the power in it is doing the kind of the grunt work stuff that, the reminding and the redundant messaging and things like that you may not have time to do on your own.
Yeah, that's so true. Last time I saw a post from a coach, he had this long text and someone commented, "Hey, thanks ChatGPT." Sometimes it reeks of AI, the text, right? So yeah, that makes sense. But
yeah, you read enough posts, you can tell.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you set it up properly, use as a brainstorming tool, like you said, then right, you find your voice, right? So yeah, that makes sense. So what's the best financial business investment you have made and why?
I think probably just having good equipment, having a good laptop and a good microphone and nice office space to work in really makes a difference in how you feel. And that, anything that makes a difference in how you feel makes a big difference in how you come across to people and your confidence.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like you're feeling legit, right? You're like, I'm running a business, not in my PJs trying to work this this desktop or this notebook doesn't really work well. Yeah, that makes sense. It gives us confidence, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's one investment you wish you could get your money back on? Like, oh my God, that was a waste of money.
Probably VA help. I went that direction a little too soon maybe and ended up spending a lot of my time just telling the person what needed to be done. And it ended up being more time doing that than actually getting any completed work back. So it was like every single thing I wanted was another, twice as long telling someone how to do it. So I think that's an easy trap to fall into these days because there's so many virtual assistants out there, vying for your time and your dollars, and everybody knows they need help, but they don't know what help they need. So it makes it pretty easy to invest where you shouldn't, maybe.
Yeah, I got mixed feelings. The past two coaches that I interviewed, they told me that was the best financial business investments. It was the VA. So I have a follow-up question for you. Do you had and this is just out of curiosity, did you had SOPs for them to follow? Did you had it properly structured, or do you feel that could be lacking that turn?
Yeah, that's a good point. That is kind of what I was lacking. I think that SOPs are super important. The goal, I think, is to have your business running so that you can step away from it and not have to be there all the time and still have it run. And if you hire the right people and you have all those things ironed out in great detail, that's when you're able to do that more.
Okay, so looking at those, how has your approach investing in the business changed over the years?
I think I've become more cautious, and I've seen how important it is to really focus on how you want things. Visualizing the way things should be is a really important skill. And, a common problem is people just don't know what they want. They know they want growth and they want money, but they don't know how to get there. And when you have a vision and you really know what the steps are, then everything else kind of falls into place.
That makes sense.
So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's not all sunshines and, it's not all perfect. And that's exactly why this podcast exists, is so we can talk to each other and understand real challenges, right? And I appreciate that you're being so upfront about it, because there are challenges, right? You can tell the next guy, hey, next coach, it's not that easy, right?
Yeah, it does take a long time to get traction, and you do end up missing out on what would be great clients if you don't have the right things to offer, you don't have a good offer, or maybe you don't know how to close people on your deal. Those are really hard lessons to learn. When you most need the revenues, when you're starting out, makes it harder to get going, I think. So it takes a lot of patience at the beginning to really get those things nailed down with experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I want to tap into your experience, like you mentioned, for a second, because people listening can really benefit from this. You've been in the game long enough to hear all kinds of business advice, some that sticks and some that really doesn't. So what's one piece of business advice you hear all the time that you think is overrated or misunderstood?
Probably the do-it-yourself myth that I mentioned before. That people seem to glorify that a lot, and I don't even know where it comes from, but I think it never happens that people are completely self-made. I think everybody needs help, so that might be in.
I mean, that's so true, because when you think about it, we don't come to this world alone. We have a doctor that helps us, our mom, so it's not like I also don't believe in the self-made myth. I mean, it's such a myth, right? We all need help. Yeah, that's so true. So on the other side, what's a piece of advice you wish more people actually took seriously?
I think just putting in the work. It takes effort, and a lot of people have an aversion to hard work and to think that the things that you want are going to happen without hard work is really an illusion. The great things that you want in life are in the work that you've been avoiding. So if you want things to happen, then you have to put in the hours and the effort. There's no way around that.
I love that. And in today's world, social media, everyone highlights the pros, right? The good things, but not the cons. So that is so true, And if someone's listening, Karl, and wants to connect with you or follow your work, where can people find you and connect with you?
Sure. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn, as I mentioned, and Instagram. You can look up my website is karlklausewitz.com. So should be easy to find. I think you can book a time on there and we can jump on and talk and, work through whatever you need. I really pride myself in helping people to get what they want, whatever that is, very quickly. So I try to get people deliverables within 24 hours. So, however that has to happen, I make it happen. So anything you need for business, come talk to me.
Okay, that's great to know. And there were a few things you shared today that really stuck with me. Well, first is the self-worth pricing topic we discussed, because we see coaches, they struggle with that. Sometimes they're, oh my God, I'm just starting. Can I charge 2,000? Can I charge 5,000? So it goes back to them. And that is so true, because the way people perceive you is how much they're going to value your work, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other was the just put in the work, man. The idea of, hey, everything's going to be so easy and it's all sunshine and rainbows. And it's not like that, right? You need to put in the work. So that is such a good reminder, And also, I really like the fact the way you stepped out of corporate America and got into coaching. And then you're like, hey, if I can do this, I can coach people to do that as well, right? So
reading the books, I think is really important. It's listening to someone else's voice. Books are amazing, You can look at a piece of wood pulp and hallucinate other people's thoughts. It's really a miracle. So I definitely recommend reading all the business books you can.
Well, I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate you being here and sharing so openly today. It was great having you, Karl.
Yeah, great talking with you, Pedro. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.